What is it?
It's time to go back.
Welcome.
Hey there, welcome back to Generation S. It's a podcast about growing up in the 90s and the early 2000s. I'm Dan Kemp, joined once again by our resident Mighty Morphin Power Rangers expert, Lou Carnivale.
Just Mighty Morphin? You can do the Zordon era. You can give me a little bit more of a...
I can.
Of a wiggle room. I can do 5 seasons.
That's fair. You can do 5 seasons of expertise when it comes to Power Rangers here, folks. So,
yes.
Very happy to have you back.
After 5 years, it gets a little fuzzy.
Yes. So, welcome back, Lou, to the show. We are talking Star Wars Part 2 today.
Very excited. This is my favorite era of Star Wars. From the three trilogies that we have, from the books, from the comics, this Clone War era is hands down my favorite.
Yes, and truthfully, I think it was the one that was responsible for really kickstarting our generation's love for Star Wars, and quite frankly, has kept the momentum train going pretty consistently. I mean, over 20 years at this point. So remember last week, folks, we talked about the original trilogy because there was some revival with it in the 90s for the 20th anniversary. So that, I think, started building interest, and that all led to the discussion of a new prequel trilogy, which was finally realized in the late 90s. I believe 1999, Lou, for Star Wars Episode 1.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
May of 99.
Yeah. And you know what's funny? I don't know if you knew this. This was crazy, but apparently people would go see movies that had the trailer for Star Wars at the beginning.
Yes.
They would pay for a ticket for the movie. They'd watch the trailer, and then they leave. They just wanted to see the trailer.
Yeah, I do recall that. My cousin, the same one that got me into Star Wars, as I mentioned on the original trilogy episode, he was working at a movie theater at the time. So he would tell me that people would, in fact, go and pay. Most of them were people that were already there seeing a movie.
Okay.
And they would just go in and sneak in, and they knew like they're just going to go watch the trailer. Like they're not watching the other movie. That's how uncontrollable it was at a certain point, that people just wanted to see this, because we were way before seeing these things on your cell phone or tablet or anything like that. So you actually had to literally go to the movie theater to see them.
Yeah. And I remember,
think about now.
I remember just how hyped everyone was, because I actually did see this one in theaters. I've only seen 2 Star Wars movies in theaters. This was the first one I ever saw in theaters, though, was Episode 1. And I just remember the hype leading up to the release of that movie. Not only just the movie itself, but all the toys and the merchandise and the video games.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that movie more than any other Star Wars movie, except maybe the more recent ones, in terms of just the sheer amount of stuff they slapped that logo on.
Yeah, I remember Maul's face was on everything.
Yes. Well, because he looked cool, man.
Absolutely everything. Yeah, they did a really good job, but you knew it was something different. It was the good combo of something new with Maul, but something familiar with, that this is going to involve Obi-Wan and Anakin and the journey, so to speak.
Yeah, well, that was the idea, because I remember the first teaser poster I saw outside the theater was, the little boy Anakin, played by Jake Lloyd, walking, and then you had the shadow of Darth Vader behind him on the rock there on Tatooine. So you're like, oh boy, okay, so this is where this whole thing starts. So even I knew that, like this was Darth Vader.
That was such a fantastic teaser poster. It's one of the best I've ever seen for anything, any movie, any genre. That's all you need is not even the actual villain appearing, the silhouette of the character is enough to get everybody excited. That's just fantastic.
Yeah, no, I can count probably on one hand how many movie posters were that iconic, and that's up there. You know what I mean? I'm trying to think of the other one. Like Jurassic Park to me is probably another one that's just, the poster itself is so iconic. The original Jaws, yep, absolutely. The original Batman '89 movie, just with the bat symbol, I feel like that was enough to get people hyped. So anyway, and then I saw it in theaters, and again, it came out in '99, so I was not even 12. I was 11 years old. I remember my grandmother took me to go see it in theaters, and I loved it. But I wasn't a
Okay.
huge Star Wars fan, and I obviously know that this is like one of the most. Well, no, it's this movie gets pretty shit on consistently by the fan base, but I happen to love it very much, and I've always enjoyed it. What are your thoughts on it?
I can give like 3 different answers.
Okay.
So when it first came out, I loved it because it was Star Wars. And like you said, this was my generation, our generation's Star Wars. So I liked it. It did feel slower, with all the Trade Federation and taxes and,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Basically, like the United Nations of the galaxy wasn't that exciting. But man, when Maul came out, woo, that got real. So I liked it. But when I rewatched it, I was just like, this isn't that good. It's just the last 15 minutes or so. It's just once those doors open and Maul's there, that's it. That's the only real good part of it. But then when everything came out, I'm talking about all 3 of the movies and the animated movie of just the Clone War animated movie, which led into the Clone Wars TV show.
Yep.
Which leads now into the Bad Batch, which is like in between. The whole package is different now because even though there's things in episode 1 that aren't that exciting or seem like they're that important, well, now there's so much content during the Clone Wars that even the most minuscule characters or mentions or passing by, like, oh, I remember that. Wow, that actually did turn out to be kind of important. It's changed now, at least for me, both with age and with the other types of material that they've released about the Clone Wars era.
Yeah. Well, and that's fair because it really does kind of set up the entire thing. Because at this point, that is the furthest back in time we've gone as far as movies go. Right? Is episode 1 is when that's when the story starts, and so everything that has happened since then started with episode 1. And so, like you said, it sets up pretty much the entire universe as we know it, even retroactively because you have the original trilogy. But I mean, I don't know. George Lucas says that he had this plan the whole time. Do you believe that?
Well, he does. He does mention the Clone Wars in the original movie before it was called. Before it was called A New Hope. You fought with my father in the Clone Wars. So he had to have. I don't think he had 3 movies worth of material ready. But that's the fact that 1970 something or other, when the original movie was made, they mentioned the Clone Wars. So,
and you don't think that was just like a random one-off of like, it sounds cool, so we'll use it, and who knows if we'll ever revisit that?
I think it would be more challenging if he just mentioned that in passing and went, well, now we have to do something about that. I mean, there are moments in Star Wars in the original trilogy where, like, well, that's a pretty big issue because how are we going to address this in the prequel? Like, Yoda was the Jedi that trained me. Well, he actually didn't. How do we get around that? Well, Yoda trained everybody. He had a hand in everybody's training. Well, okay. That's true from a certain point of view.
Yeah, there it is. From a certain point of view.
They did put themselves in a box, but all things considered, I think they did a good job with, going backwards.
Yeah.
And time, and while you were mentioning it, is it the earliest timepiece of Star Wars that we see? Obviously, there's books and there's comics, but I believe it is. I believe it is the starting point for all TV movie episodes or releases, so to speak, of Star Wars. It is the starting point. Everything, it lays the foundation for what's been out and what they're going to continue to put out, because they're still putting out content that is still tied to the prequel trilogy.
Yeah.
Even with Mandalorian that's out right now, there's still ties to that prequel trilogy, even if it's just running into a battle droid. It's like, oh, those are the battle droids they introduced in episode 1. Well, there's those moments still.
I'm glad that, because again, when the prequel trilogy first came out, it was always compared to the original trilogy, and I would agree. I think you and I agree on this. It's not as good as the original trilogy overall, but what it does as far as setting up the universe is fantastic, and I love the fact that now, especially even more so, they are showing that love for the franchise, or for the prequel franchise, I should say. With the nods, like you mentioned, kind of the battle droids, or bringing the actor who played adult Anakin back, Hayden Christensen, for the Obi-Wan show, and so I think it's finally getting its due. And it's certainly a flawed trilogy, but I never thought it was as bad as people made it out to be, personally speaking. As far as a whole,
it's being compared to one of the greatest movies and greatest trilogies in history of cinema.
Yeah.
So if you go with the expectation of it's going to be equal to greatness, it's not going to. It's set up to fail. The prequel trilogy is liked and disliked, but as time goes on, it's liked more and more. When you get that nostalgia, like you said, Hayden Christensen came back, Ewan McGregor came back. Did you know, and I know you haven't really watched a lot of Mandalorian, the actor that played Jar Jar Binks, unfortunately, the gentleman tried to, do harm to himself.
Yeah, I do remember that.
He came back in The Mandalorian, and they gave him a very, very important role. That he was the spoiler. And 3, 2, 1, that he was the Jedi Knight that saved Baby Yoda Grogu during Order 66. It's him. It's that character that portrayed Jar Jar, and they gave him a brand new role. And everybody, oh, that's Jar Jar. That's great. Good for him, because there's a sense of understanding now, because it's our generation's, Star Wars.
Yeah.
Will it happen with the sequels? I don't know if it will. I actually don't think it will, because I feel like when the prequels came out, the old-timers didn't really like it, but the new people didn't like it. I feel like with the sequels, the old-timers don't like it. I shouldn't say old-timers, because that might be offensive. So the original trilogy fans didn't like it.
Right.
The prequel trilogy people didn't like it. And these people that just started to watch it now were mixed.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but
I mean,
it is good that
give it
the
20
nostalgia
years.
is there for the... Yeah. Oh, 20 years. Oh, God, I'll be old. Or a lot older.
Yeah.
The nostalgia is there now for this prequel trilogy, because time went by, but also because it kept going. It kept the needle moving afterwards. It is the foundation for almost everything Star Wars now.
Yeah. Yep, you're absolutely right. And so, I mean, like I said, we're not going to go through the plots of each of the films. Again, I think we're agreeing on this. The highlight of that first, episode 1 was the final lightsaber battle, right? That's hands down.
Oh my God, not even in comparison.
Yeah.
There's nothing else in that movie other than
the pod race.
Other than that. Yeah.
You don't like the pod race?
Tough video games, by the way. It was too long.
Okay. That's fair.
Long. But it was cool. It was cool. Made some great video games. The only other moment I could say, especially for original trilogy fans, like my cousin that I went and saw it with, is just the first scene of seeing Star Wars back.
Yeah.
And seeing Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan, a young Obi-Wan Kenobi, and a new Jedi Knight in Qui-Gon Jinn. That probably, just for the first time watching, not on DVD or streaming, but when it first came out, that was probably the number 2 moment in the movie, I would assume, after the Maul coming out.
Well, and I was just going to say, for me, actually, you mentioned that opening scene. I love the fact, like, I remember to this day, the fact that they used their lightsabers to cut open a door, and you just saw them melting the metal on the door. It was the first time that I remember seeing a lightsaber used for something other than, like, attacking a person or fighting against, clashing with another lightsaber. And I thought it was like, oh, okay, these things are pretty legit then.
Yeah, that was cool. And then we go into episode 2, which was, I would say, if you're listening to this, and you have a significant other that is not into Star Wars, that's more into the rom-coms or just romantic stories in general, episode 2 is where you start.
Yeah.
Episode 2 is where you start, because that is a love story, which is why a lot of people didn't really like it, other than, some goofy lines of, I don't like sand, it's coarse and irritating, and it gets everyone like, oh, jeez. Yeah. Some bad meme material in episode 2, but the thing I liked about episode 2 was the scope of it. It felt big.
Yeah.
And that's why I don't like the prequel trilogy. It just felt like, whoa, this is a couple bad days. This stinks.
Yeah.
This felt like it was building and building and building and building, but then they eventually, in my opinion, dropped the ball. We can get to that in a moment. But episode 2, if your lady friend's into romance and you're into Star Wars, I would say, hey, Star Wars number 2, what happened to number 1? Some dude with like face tattoos. Yeah, he's a really cool guy, but didn't really work out. And some guy thinks a senator's a princess and yada, yada, yada. And here we are. The end. There you go.
So I'll be upfront and say episode 2 is my least favorite of the prequel trilogy.
I think it is for most people.
Yeah, I just and not even
not for me.
Well, and I want to hear about that in a second.
Not for me now.
So, but as far as I felt like there were too many times in the movie where things felt like they were dragging. Like there was action, do not get me wrong, but there was also a lot of weird, dull moments between the action, and the villain, you had Count Dooku, who was sort of just like shoehorned in. It felt like, obviously he's got if you're a Star Wars fan, Count Dooku has a very rich backstory in the Star Wars universe, but for a casual like myself, they bring in, granted it's Christopher Lee and he's awesome in pretty much everything he's in, but they bring in Count Dooku as supposedly this really bad guy that's training under the Emperor. It's like, well, okay, well, where the hell was he last time? Because it would have been nice to know that. He shows up and he fights. It's just a dude with a one lightsaber this time, not a dual lightsaber, which was amazing with Darth Maul. He's got one lightsaber and he's fighting against 2 Jedis and he wins. And it just, I don't know. I think they were trying to go for the feeling, the vibe that Empire Strikes Back had, but I think they've kind of failed on it because for me, it just didn't deliver. But I'm very curious because you mentioned that you are a fan of this movie.
I am, because of what comes after it. And in the timeline of Star Wars, again, I feel like a broken record. At the time, it was my least favorite. When it was released, I'm like, this is just all the love stuff, the lovey-dovey stuff between Anakin and Padme. I didn't get it. I got it, but I just didn't connect with it. Yeah. Even as an adult, it just felt forced. It felt weird. But there's parts of the movie that is good, but I still like number 1 for, I don't know, probably nostalgia, even when I was younger. But watching it as an adult, it's fantastic. That fight between Jango Fett and Obi-Wan is fantastic. Yeah. The Battle of Geonosis, to me, is still the most enjoyable large-scale fight in Star Wars history. Like, I don't like the Ewoks fight in Return of the Jedi. The fight at Episode 9 on Exegol was just didn't connect with me. I still feel like Episode 2's Battle of Geonosis is the largest grand-scale Star Wars battle that we've ever seen so far. Yeah, that's hard to argue. You're right, because it is. It's pretty epic. There's a ton of action there. I just remember leading up to that, the whole thing with like Obi-Wan being thrown into the kind of the gladiator pit there where he's trying to escape and whatnot. I felt like that stretched out way too long. I don't even think there was any music at some point, so it was just him jumping around with like the crowd. I don't know. There were parts of that it was kind of boring, but then that and the battle for Geonosis actually went down, and it was great. I agree. I think it was because the thing about a Star Wars, like I feel like this is pretty formulaic for Star Wars, but you always have at the end you have like at least 2, if not 3, concurrent battles going on, right? Whether it's an air battle and a ground battle and a lightsaber battle, or some combination of those 3. And I feel like they definitely pulled that off in Episode 2 at the end. They did, and also this is where you see Yoda fight. Yes, for the first time, which was amazing, and that was the one thing. It was exciting because, again, as a kid, my cousin said, Yoda fought, and the little lightsaber toy fit in his little hand. Yep. So when I got to see it, I'm like, oh, he was right. Yoda does fight. He fought differently. There's bits and pieces. I feel like there's more bits and pieces that are good in Episode 2. That's fair. You have overall. You have the beginning where Obi-Wan and Anakin are chasing the bounty hunter. That's good because you get to see Anakin's kind of a wild card. He's a wild guy. Then you have the creation of the clones. Speaking of which, that's something. How much I love Episode 2 and 3. I have my signed clone. Nice. You know who it is. It's the voice of Olmec. Did I say his name right? Olmec. You were close. D. Baker D. Bradley Baker.
Yep.
He was the voice of the clones in the animated show. So that's how much I love 2 and 3 and the clones in general. The creation of the clones and the fight with Obi-Wan and Jango is great. That's important. You also, the first time you see Mace Windu fight with a purple lightsaber, that blew everybody's minds. Like, that bad mother has a purple lightsaber.
Yep.
So that there's bits and pieces. Whereas I feel episode 1 is just like the last 15 to 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Just take out all. If you're watching it on, here's the one good thing about watching it on DVD. I know, or Blu-ray. That skip button, which you don't have in streaming, is very useful in episode 2.
Yes.
Because you have fight sequence, love story. Fight sequence, love story. You just, at the end of Obi-Wan fighting, I really don't want to watch Anakin flirt. Skip, and boom, we're done.
Yeah.
So I would say the best way to watch episode 2 is on Blu-ray or DVD if you have it, because you're going to skip all the fluff.
Yes. Absolutely. That's and actually that's one of the few Star Wars DVDs I did not own was episode 2. So I never could have done that.
Really?
But I think I watched it on VHS actually, funnily enough. So I want to go back.
I actually bought it on VHS at a like a secondhand store. It was there for $1 in the wrapping still.
Really?
Like, legit mint for $1. I go, why the hell not?
Yeah.
Just to go with the Star Wars collection.
I mean, that's absolutely a collector's item.
Yeah.
I want to go back because you mentioned Mace Windu, played by Samuel L. Jackson, and I remember the story because I thought this was the coolest thing about, like, oh, why does he have a purple lightsaber? It was literally just because he asked George Lucas, "Hey, can I have a purple lightsaber?" And he's like, "Yes, I think we can probably make that work," and that was it.
Yeah, because the original toy in episode 1 of Mace Windu had a blue lightsaber.
It was blue. Okay, yeah, because he never fought in episode 1, so nobody knew what it was.
Nope.
So.
You didn't even see it. You saw it on his hip, so to speak. But I mean, there's a whole. If you want to go down a rabbit hole, go ahead. You can find out why Mace Windu has a purple lightsaber. But for us, we're just going with Sam Jackson won a purple lightsaber.
And there it is.
Can't say no to Sam Jackson. So there you go.
There it is. So, hey, let's go back to episode 1 for a minute because I want to do this like we did last time. So, where would you rank episode 1? I think we did like a scale of 1 to 10 last time, if I recall correctly. What would you give episode 1?
Now? I
mean, I guess. Let's say now, retroactively speaking, what would you rank it at now among the entire, series? Or maybe no, let's just
I still think
among the prequel trilogy, comparing it to the other 2 movies in this set.
A C.
Okay.
It's still it still moves slow.
Okay.
Compared to episode 2. It's just all building up to Maul finally revealing himself at the end. Whereas I feel like in episode 2 there's more pieces.
There's more stuff throughout that's like set pieces or action pieces, whatever you want to call them or what have you. So
yeah.
That's fair. Yeah. Okay. I would say maybe a C+, maybe even a B-, just because I still love it. I mean,
wow.
Yeah, I really do like it. Now, episode 2, where would you rank that one? And by the way, I said a scale of 1 to 10. And you're like, C. I'm like, yeah, I think we did letter grade last time. Now that I think about it, so we'll go letter grades.
Because I'm hungry. I'm hungry and I'm thinking about cookies.
Nice. C is for cookie. There it is.
C is for cookie. Then it is good enough for me.
Yes. All right. So,
do you want me to do the number or you want me to do a letter?
No, let's do a letter. We'll stick with letter.
Okay. So number 2, episode 2, now I would give a B-.
Okay.
Because I'm such a massive fan of the Clone Wars animated show. And I feel like episode 1 set off everything in Star Wars.
Yeah.
More concentrated is obviously episode 2 sets off the Clone Wars animated show.
Yep.
Which sets off the Bad Batch, which I also like. So my favorite character comes into the world of Star Wars right after episode 2. So when I watch episode 2, I fan theory about, well, where is she? What is she doing? Then things like that, which we kind of got some answers for about where that character is during episode 3, and we'll get to that in a few moments.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough. I would probably give it a C. I think we kind of reversed it there where it's not a bad movie. It's not a great movie as far as Star Wars movies go. So I'd say it's okay. It's not bad. So
it is. It's
Yeah.
not the best. It's not the worst.
Yeah, no, that's fair. All right, well then let's because I want to give some love to the animated series and the first animated series that you showed me back in college that was on Cartoon Network. I want to talk about that as well, and I want to obviously cover all like the other video games and stuff like that. So, but we'll go through the movies first and then we'll go back. So,
Sure.
So episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. This came out my senior year of high school, so I guess you would have been. It was your first year of college, because you're a year older than me, right?
Correct. Yes.
And
I was
this
working at Target.
This was a big deal because this was the last one as far as we knew. This was it. You know what I mean? This was, as far as Star Wars movies went, like this was what the first 2 movies were building towards. Was okay. We're going to see Anakin Skywalker become Darth Vader, and so. First off, I just want to ask you out of the gate, based on that whole idea of this is what we've been building towards, do you feel that Revenge of the Sith delivered on that promise?
No.
Okay.
I think everybody had this expectation of seeing more of Darth Vader, not Anakin Vader. I think people were disappointed. You know what's funny? We just talked about it. We just did another recording about Mortal Kombat and Twisted Metal potentially. It seems like the trend has been the last, number of years, and this is almost 20 years old at this point, is building towards something big happening and like, well, what's going to happen, or it is going to happen. Like with Mortal Kombat, you mentioned in the newest movie, you don't even really get to see the tournament. It's building up to it.
Yep.
Correct?
Yes.
So, like the newer Godzilla movies, Godzilla was barely in the first one, just the regular Godzilla movie. They were building towards it. I felt like this was it also was, okay, you're going to see him. You see the turn. There it is. Off with the hand.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think what I got with Anakin Vader was great, but I think much like episode 7, where you're waiting for Luke, and you go just get that look at the end. It's just like, okay, that's it. That's all we're getting. This was even worse. Was you get like 3 lines from James Earl Jones, and that's it. It's like, I said that, and Luke at the end of episode 7 was like having really good sex, but not, finishing. It's like, oh, this is great, and we're done. Okay, we're done. That's it. That's all I'm getting. Like, okay, I don't know if I could say that. Yes, without you got blue balls. Yeah, you got blue balls with Vader at the end of 3, just standing there with his arms. But it was a cool visual. But it would have been cool. I think people wanted a little bit. I mean, they probably wanted a lot more. They probably wanted Vader to appear like halfway through the movie in the suit, but I think it just wasn't what people were hoping for in terms of that. I think the execution and the turn was well done. I think Hayden Christensen, I almost said Christian Bale. Wow. That would have been completely wrong.
Yeah.
His portrayal of Anakin being evil was very good.
Yep, I would agree. And I don't think I was as disappointed as you. I think I thought that, to me, it's my favorite. I'll tell you, it's my favorite of the prequel trilogy. I mean, and again, I feel like that's not uncommon for most people. Do I wish I could have seen more Darth Vader in the suit? Yes, absolutely. But at the same time, you couldn't really do much past the epic battle on Mustafar, because I mean that was like, you can't really top that.
Oh, it's fantastic.
So I mean that was was it 30 or 45 minutes? It was a long battle.
It was a long, and it was stretched out too, because you're having that battle and then going back to Yoda and Palpatine, and then the aftermath of that, and they're still going.
Yeah.
It was fantastic.
It was
really just top notch.
So again, I feel like, that was the, again, going back to talking about being blue balled, that was the climax for all intents and purposes. And so, to have much more of Vader in the traditional Vader attire, I feel like you'd have to have another climax. And the movie was already getting close to 3 hours, I think, or at least two hours plus. So like you couldn't. So I understand why. And and again, I don't think we're disagreeing here, because I think we're on the same page. It's like we understand why you couldn't have more Vader, but it just sucks that this was not the movie. Like there should have been an episode 3.5 where you really see Darth Vader being Darth Vader, and we kind of get
Kenobi
that
series.
Well, with the Kenobi series, but you also kind of get that a little bit with Rogue One, many years later.
Yep.
And he's not a focal point, but he's in it. There's the point there. So I understand that. I do like that they dialed back on the love story. It's still there, obviously, and it's still, the whole driving force behind Anakin going to the dark side as far as trying to save Padme. But it didn't feel as awkward, I guess. I don't know. I mean, because she's pregnant, they're married, they're basically a couple. I mean, well, not basically, they're a married couple, and he's conflicted, and so I don't know. It was less cringy this time around. Would you agree on that?
Oh, certainly so. I don't know if that was just the writing, the actors feeling more comfortable in their roles at this point, but yeah, it was certainly less cringy.
Yeah, no, honestly, they seem to have more chemistry this time around. I think that was the big thing I noticed, is like they kind of like to be around each other this time, whereas last time it just felt really awkward. So, and maybe that was the whole point of the direction of George Lucas. I don't know.
What surprised me in this was how quickly they kill, and we're not going to go into details, but you had Count Dooku get killed within the first 15 minutes of the movie.
Yeah, I mean, he was almost an afterthought.
Which surprised me.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, but it was really surprising, though.
I guess that's true, yeah. If you look at it like that, it's kind of like, to compare it to a more modern movie like Avengers Endgame, when you see Thor decapitate Thanos 15 minutes in, you're like, oh, okay. Well, what?
Yeah, that happened. Like, okay.
What now?
What's the rest of the movie going to be?
So I guess that was kind of the same effect. Now, I guess I knew, because I already knew that Dooku was going to get decapitated before I watched the movie. So for me, it wasn't like, because I didn't see it in theaters, so I kind of knew most of the plot already. So I wasn't shocked by it as much, I guess. And I also knew that, like, okay, the Emperor is going to have to come out here soon, like, as the Emperor. So I tell you what shocked me, though, was when he was fighting Mace Windu, and I thought, oh man, Windu's, he's gonna kill the Emperor. And obviously in the back of my head, I'm like, no, I know he's not, but I'm very convinced right now. And then Anakin is the one who basically screws him over. He comes in with the
that was great.
Yeah, he with the interference there at the end. Ref wasn't looking, and boom, Windu's thrown out a window.
Yep.
And then, but then on top of that, you had the Emperor basically morph into that gross, ugly Emperor that we know. So let me ask you about that, because this is
very well done.
Well, I wanted to ask you about that because you would know far more than me. So, did the Emperor always look creepy, gross like that, and he was just masking it, or did the lightning morph him into that?
You actually used the right terminology, a force mask, which is like an urban legend in Star Wars. You don't know. We haven't really gotten an answer about, is that how the Emperor looks, and you just saw the Force because he was taking the Force away from masking how he looked because of the dark side.
Yeah.
Because essentially he was using the Force to hold up his appearance to look normal, but he had to let his guard down because he was literally fighting for his life against I sound a Canadian there because I got a hockey hat on, against Mace Windu. That's interesting. We never really got an answer about that. I wouldn't be disappointed either way. I think they're both cool in different ways.
Yeah.
It's showing that the Emperor was that powerful and so in tune with the Force that he could at all times put on this mask.
Yeah.
If they go that route. But on the flip side, if they go the route of nope, it was because Mace Windu is that powerful that he literally was burning the Emperor and was about to defeat him. That's awesome also.
Yeah.
And that death scene for Mace Windu was because Sam Jackson again said, if I'm going to go, I want to go good. Well, we're going to cut off your hand.
Yeah.
Cut off your hand. Then we're going to electrocute you. And then we're going to throw you off out of a building 50 stories up. That's how you go.
Yeah. No, I mean,
so it's funny. Sam Jackson requested some funny things. He got the purple lightsaber, which people love, and he got the most epic death scene ever of a character in any movie.
Yeah, and you know what? To George Lucas's credit, it makes Mace Windu all the more badass as a whole, and just he's awesome. And it's just he got screwed over by the Empire, and maybe he'll come back one day.
Yep.
Who knows? Because you don't technically see him hit the ground, right? So.
Yeah, well, that was another thing with Baby Yoda. They thought maybe Mace Windu went back and got him, but we got the actor that portrayed Jar Jar Binks to be a new character, which is, to me, even better.
Yeah, it is, just because of the behind the scenes and everything. Because that was,
oh yeah, absolutely,
pretty terrible. So,
yep,
gosh, such a good movie. So, okay, again, grading scale. Where would you rank episode? Oh, by the way, I didn't even ask you this. So, I saw the first one in theaters. Did you see all 3 of these in theaters?
Yes, I've seen all 3. I've seen every Star Wars movie in theaters. Obviously, the originals
in the re-released,
re-released in the 90s, and then I saw Empire Strikes Back at a drive-in during COVID, which was still fantastic.
That's
to
so
see.
Cool. Yeah.
It was really great. But yes, I've seen all 9 plus the animated movie, which was really just like 3 episodes combined to make one movie. So I've seen, and then the Solo movie and Rogue One. I've seen every Star Wars movie that's been released in theaters since I've been alive in theaters.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's way more than me. All right. So anyway, I was just curious about that. So how would you score episode 3?
I mean, it is my favorite Star Wars movie. It is.
So I'm feeling in the trilogy or of all time?
Of all time.
Really? Okay.
I love it. I absolutely love it because it's the culmination of my generation. It's the culmination of the animated show, which I hold in such high standards now.
Yep.
It's setting up the original trilogy, which everybody loves. So to me, it's the most important Star Wars movie, and it's also the most enjoyable for me. It's just sometimes, since it is so dark and everybody's just getting slashed, I can't watch it at every moment. And I'm like, I feel like watching a Star Wars movie. Like, I'm not really in the mood to watch Anakin, slay the younglings, so to speak.
Right.
I mean, to me, it's like an A because I just love it. I think it's the hands down. I don't think anybody would disagree that it's the best prequel movie.
100%. No, I would give it an A.
Think that it's the best Star Wars movie. Yeah. Okay. So we're on the same page.
Yes. What I find interesting is I feel like it had the same tonality that you had with Empire Strikes Back, where the bad guys won, like hands down. The bad guy, and so it's interesting that it came at not at the peak of the trilogy, but at the end of the trilogy, the bad guys win. And so then you have, and I guess the whole idea is that, you're supposed to think, oh, there's no hope. But wait a second, episode 4, there's a new hope. And so then it kind of comes back.
So that raises a question that many Star Wars fans have asked. If you're introducing somebody to Star Wars from scratch, let's pretend they don't know Darth Vader is Anakin Skywalker.
Yeah.
They don't know that Luke Skywalker is the son of the chosen one. What is the best order to show somebody episode 1 through 6 that has no knowledge of Star Wars?
I've actually thought about this, and I was wondering that, like I was going back and forth, but I have decided I still think the best way to show somebody new is to go 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3.
I'll meet you in the middle.
Okay.
4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 6.
What?
So you're watching episode 4.
Okay.
Where you get to hear that Luke is training to be a Jedi, and Obi-Wan Kenobi did this, or Ben Kenobi did this Clone War thing. And it happens, and they win the day. Great. And then you go to episode 5, and, the dark side is there, and you hear the name Anakin Skywalker. And go, okay, well, I've heard that before. And then you get the reveal, I am your father, and he says, no, that's impossible. So I got that idea from watching a documentary when James Earl Jones was saying he was voicing it. Apparently, only 5 people knew what was going on. It was Mark Hamill, George Lucas, the producer, and eventually when James Earl Jones did the voiceovers. But on set, nobody knew because the actor that was playing Darth Vader said, in the mask, Obi-Wan never told you what happened to your father. He says, Obi-Wan killed your father. And then Luke goes, no. They pulled Mark Hamill and said, they go, he's saying that, but this is what he's going to say when James Earl Jones says it. And he went, what? Is that real? The actors going into number 6 did not know if Darth Vader was telling the truth. James Earl Jones says when he was reading the script, he turned around, he's like, oh, he's lying, right? So the actors did not know. You did not know at the end of episode 5. You had to wait to Return of the Jedi to find out, was Vader just kind of messing around with Luke?
Right.
Or was he telling the truth? So imagine not knowing at all. Put yourself back in those shoes.
And having to wait 2 years or whatever it was.
Yes. So imagine you're watching 4 and 5 and he says that. It's like, is he telling the truth? Well, let's go back to episode 1. Let's watch the prequels. 1, 2, 3. Then you get the real answer. Then you watch episode 6.
Okay.
Because if you watch 1, 2, 3, you know when episode 4 starts.
Yes.
When Ben Kenobi says, well, Darth Vader betrayed and murdered your father. You're like, what the hell is he talking about? No, he didn't.
Yeah.
So I feel like that Luke, it doesn't say that. He doesn't say, Luke, I am your father.
He does not.
He says, I am your father. If you watch one, if you go in order, it doesn't have the same punch.
That's
Sorry,
fair.
that was a really long answer.
No, but it makes sense, and I appreciate that, because at first I was very confused as to why you wanted to go in such a weird order, but now it makes perfect sense. So I totally get that. Oh, man. Well, listen, let's talk about the other stuff that came out. Okay, first off, let's talk about the other, media on TV and in the theaters. So you want to talk about the original 2D animated Clone Wars thing first, or you want to talk about the 3D one that you love so much?
Well, the 2D one, I really didn't watch that much.
Okay.
I know they introduced Ventress, who was a Star Wars character. She was like the first real female, anything really other than Leia and Padme. She was a dark side user, so that was interesting. They showed how Anakin got his scar in that, but other than that, that was when things with Star Wars were still kind of iffy about, is it canon, is it not canon? And I've said on multiple shows that we've done that, say what you will about Disney, they've just locked it down of like, nope, if it didn't come from us, it's not canon, which I absolutely love, which leads us into the more modern Clone Wars TV show.
Okay. And so and you've been telling me for years I need to watch that show, and I'm sad to say that I have still not watched that show, and I need to. It's on my list. It's actually saved in my for Disney Plus to watch it. I just haven't yet, and I know it's really good. And how would you? Would you say it's even better to watch the show than to watch the prequel trilogy, or at least the second and third ones? Like, where would you rank it in terms of overall enjoyment in the series?
I feel like you get so much more appreciation for 2 and 3 if you watch the Clone Wars.
Gotcha. Okay.
If you watch this, you get to understand, especially going into number 3, it lays the foundation of why Anakin is frustrated. It lays down that it's not just that he turns to the dark side to save Padme. That's like 80% of it. But there is a piece of him is like, I could end this war. Like this war that's only 3 years long, but they say in the TV show, like, this is a never ending war. Like, this is like, we take back one planet, then 2 more get under, separatist control. You get this feeling about it actually being a huge galaxy-wide conflict, whereas in episode 2, you see the Battle of Geonosis, there's your clones, and the next thing you know, you're watching episode 3, and it's pretty much over. Like, well, it just started in 2, and it's pretty much over in 3. Like, what the hell happened?
And that's where the show comes in.
Where is it? And that's where the show comes in. So if you can get past that it's animated, which some people have a hard time, that's fine. I can understand that. Man, will you have a better enjoyment of the whole prequels trilogy just by the clones, and that you get to know the personalities, what they're dealing with, the generals. You see so many more Jedi. You see Jedi that actually do some fighting and diplomacy that in the movies you see them as a background character, or they get killed in Order 66 within 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Oh, well, who the hell is that guy? Well, here's a couple episodes about that guy or gal to give you some insight into who they are and what they did before, Order 66.
I just had a thought too, and I don't know how we could put it on YouTube without getting, stricken with a copyright, whatever. But because you've texted me this before, and I feel like it would be really beneficial if you could do this as a YouTube video for the channel, where you put out a list of episodes. Like, here's, if you don't have time to watch the series, here's the list of episodes to get the overall story of the Clone Wars, and get rid of all the filler. Like, here's the absolute must watch episodes of the Clone Wars. Like, because you've told me there's certain episodes that I don't need to watch necessarily to get the the overall story.
Well, there are some filler episodes, especially in the beginning. But here's the funny thing about this. So they came out with the movie. Again, it was the same animation style as the TV show eventually became. But it was essentially just the first 3 or 4 episodes smushed together. I liked it, but they introduced a character and I go, who is this? She's so annoying, this Ahsoka Tano. She's talking back to Yoda. She's talking back to Obi-Wan. She has her own ideas. I'm like, she's terrible. She's terrible. She's just a terrible character. I just didn't like her. And then the show came out, like on, I want to say, was it Cartoon Network? I think it was.
I think it originally was Cartoon Network before Disney acquired everything.
And it was good, but I still didn't like her. She was very annoying to me. And then they had a couple of filler episodes with 3PO and Archie. I'm like, all right, I'm done. And then somebody said, oh, did you see Maul came back? I go, what are you talking about? Like a flashback? They're like, no, like he's alive. I go, okay, what's going on? And I watched those episodes. Like, hey, that girl that was really annoying is actually pretty cool. And this is when Disney Plus, was it Disney Plus? No, I got them on DVD. Showing my age again. And I'm like, this is actually really cool of a series. So it takes a little bit. But yeah, that would be really good. And I probably will do that to get the fluff out of the way, to give you like, okay, you're pressed for time. Let's condense what you should watch and why you should watch it. Because that series made me go from literally, I'm not watching this show because I don't like Ahsoka, to, my God, she's my favorite character. I can't wait for her own TV show.
Yeah, which, lo and behold, she now has. So very exciting.
Yes, absolutely.
So, all right, let's talk about because we kind of covered the show there. There was the movie, which basically was the show condensed. Let's go back and talk about the video games, because I only played one video game from the prequel trilogy, and that was the original Phantom Menace. I've never even played Pod Racer, by the way, because I know that had come out on N64.
Really?
Yeah, no. The only one I ever played was on PlayStation 1. It was Star Wars Episode 1, where you were just playing as Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon, running through and killing droids with your lightsabers.
I remember playing Jedi Power Battles. I don't know if it was the same thing.
No, I don't think so.
It was based on Episode 1, but it was very, very hard. I don't remember a lot of prequel games, especially 1 and 2. I know they made an Episode 1 game, but I never played it.
Okay, and that's what I think I did play.
They made an Episode 2 game that was like I remember going to GameStop or EB Games back in the day, and it was like the pack-in game for the original Xbox. It was it was Episode 2 of the Clone Wars video game with Tetris. Do you remember seeing that? It was like $1 at every EB and every GameStop, because everybody that got a system got this 2-pack.
Yeah,
but it really wasn't anything to write home about. That I remember, and then I do remember playing the Episode 3 game on PS2, and that was fantastic.
Okay.
I got that from Blockbuster. That was when they did like the unlimited rentals for like a summer or something like that.
Yeah, that's right. That was a while ago, but I do remember that. So,
ironically, I was preparing to wear my Blockbuster shirt on the show today, but I opted not to, and now I'm kicking myself. I should have worn my Blockbuster.
Well, listen, I think we're gonna. We'll do an episode on movie rentals in general, because it's such a big part of our channel.
So much.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. So we'll definitely, you'll have a chance again to wear your Blockbuster shirt. So, and I take it back actually, because I said the only one I ever played from the prequel trilogy was Episode 1. I think we should count the Battlefront games as part of the prequel trilogy, right?
Yes.
So I played those. We played them together.
Especially the original one. The original one came out with Episode 3. I think Episode 3 on DVD, or at least in the movies, it came out because there wasn't a lot of prequel maps on the original Battlefront. Battlefront 2, maybe I have it wrong. Don't attack me. But I know that there wasn't a lot of... No, wait. Now I remember as I'm saying it. Because the original Battlefront didn't have Mustafar.
Right.
The second one did. That was a big deal. It had Mustafar in it. And it also had... You would select your hero or your villain. It would say Darth Vader for Mustafar, but it was Anakin. It was just regular Anakin Skywalker. But they call it... Because technically that is Darth Vader, just without the the robotics.
Right.
So yes, Battlefront 1 came out before Episode 3, and then number 2 came out with Episode 3. So yeah, they're technically prequel Star Wars games. So if that's concerned, then my God, the prequels had the best games ever, because those are two of my favorite, along with the pod racing game on N64, which was fantastic and frustrating at the same time.
Yes, and I'm thinking, because there was even I'm just thinking of other games we didn't talk about last time that had come out during the prequel trilogy era, but Star Wars Jedi Knight, that's not a prequel game, but it came out around the same time as the prequels.
Yeah, Jedi Outcast, Jedi Academy.
Yep,
those were fantastic games. I got those. I remember they were so hard to find at one point.
Yeah.
Very expensive. Again, we're talking about when retro gaming was not an in thing to do. So if you're going around, this is the 360 era, and you're paying $30 for a game that came out 4 or 5 years ago on a previous generation's console, that was a lot of money back then.
Yes.
Now, not so much. It's not, weird to pay $30 for a game that came out on the 360 or a PS3 if it's a more popular game, because there's less demand for it. All right, and retro gaming's popular, but back then, $30 for a game that was old was a lot of money. And they had, what was the character's name? Kyle Katarn was the main character in these games. It was fantastic. Those, wow, haven't thought about those in a while, because they're on the Switch, right? They're on they have like a combo, like a double pack you can buy.
Yeah, they're on Nintendo Switch, and then you know what else is, and I don't think you ever played this one, maybe you did, but Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic.
Oh, that reminds me of another one. I did not, because I'm not an RPG guy. That would be up your alley.
Yeah.
What I did not play back in the day, because I got it from Blockbuster, and I just, for whatever reason, didn't like it or didn't have time, whatever, played it on Game Pass on Xbox, Star Wars Republic Commando.
Yes.
Man, is that such a good game.
Yes.
That's a great game. That's a game I think we should stream.
Okay. I mean, yeah, I think we could probably figure that out.
That's a game we should stream, because that takes place... right after the cleaning up the mess, so to speak, of the Battle of Geonosis.
Yes.
That is so good.
Mm-hmm. No, that one's gotten a lot of love, because
it's a lot more than...
I was just going to say, I remember that one was very popular back then, and they were like, okay, they need to remake it or re-release it or whatever, so you can get it now on, I think, all the current consoles.
I know you can definitely get it on Game Pass. They've probably re-released it. Absolutely fantastic game. A game I never played. Oh man, there's two more just jumped in my head.
What's that?
There was and this one is on PlayStation Now or PlayStation Plus, whatever their streaming service is, so to speak. Star Wars Bounty Hunter. It's essentially a Jango Fett game.
Oh, okay.
Great game.
Never played that one.
Dated. It feels dated though. It's got that, because I feel personally like that PS2 was the last. No, I'm sorry. PS1 was the last of the classic gaming systems that still kind of punish you for playing a game.
Yeah.
NES hard.
Right.
I feel like the Bounty Hunter game still has that NES hard of okay, it's a little hard, it's a little challenging, but also was going to the new generation of games that were 3D platforming, so to speak, but also has well, where the hell am I going in this? That was one game that I know is available online. One game I've never played it's just called Obi-Wan on the original Xbox. And the reason it jumps out to me, I believe it's an Xbox exclusive, but it's Obi-Wan Ewan McGregor from Episode 1, but he's got a green... The whole box art is black. Obi-Wan's illuminated in green because he's holding a green lightsaber. So I would assume it's Qui-Gon's from Episode 1.
Right.
I've never even seen gameplay of that game. Now I'm very interested. As soon as we finish up, I'm going to look it up.
Go look it up, man.
But there was a lot of games, more than I even remembered.
Yeah.
I played the Star Wars not Battlefront 3, Episode 3 on Game Boy Advance, and it's a side scroller, and it's a fun game.
Yeah.
I didn't realize how many were made.
Well, and that's what I was saying of like, this kick started like, I mean, they were full blast pumping out Star Wars everything. And we haven't even talked about the toys yet. Like, did you have any of the action figures for the prequel trilogy?
I was not collecting then,
Okay.
but I do remember getting 2 figures because they were Target exclusives.
Yeah.
It was, I guess, what was supposed to be like an early version of a stormtrooper, which obviously has never been made, in Episode 3. But it was an exclusive. So if you get that, if you're a collector, you see exclusive. Oh, it's gonna be worth money. It's like worth $10 now.
Yeah.
And then I have like, I guess what was like a concept of what Vader would look like in the suit. So like his suit was like reddish and yellow because it was burnt.
Okay.
Those are the only 2 like true Episode 3 figures I bought. But during this time period is when they came out with the Star Wars Unleashed figures.
Okay.
They were like, I guess like what they're called. Back in the day, we called them hard plastic. Now it's like PVC.
Yeah.
There were statues. They weren't figures. And they were
Yes.
probably, some of them were shorter. Like, I know the Mace Windu figure, he's kind of crouched down. So it's not a tall figure. It's more of a wide figure. But, I have the Boba Fett figure. It's got to be like 8, 9, 10 inches tall.
Yeah.
So, and they've aged very well in just the way they were produced and the way they look. I have some statues that were made for Power Rangers and Turtles that were $60 at GameStop, which are, they're better quality, but not that much compared to what those Star Wars Unleashed figures were made in, 05, 06.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my God.
And I never completed the collection. It's still ongoing.
Okay. All right. Well, work in progress then. But yeah, man.
Yeah,
I just
for 20 something years.
Yeah. As we're just, I keep thinking of all the stuff that was made. Like as we're talking, I'm remembering, like we talk about those video games, just there's so much stuff keeps popping up that it's like, yeah, no, they went all out. Oh my God. And again, I feel like it really never stopped. Like, yeah, you had the lull in terms of movies because you had about almost 10 years in between that and the next Star Wars movie release, which is still, well, no, I guess it's more time than between Return of the Jedi and Episode 1, but still, like, it didn't feel like it because Star Wars was still putting out fresh content. I mean, they've been putting out content for Star Wars pretty consistently since 1999, right? I mean, it's whether it's a TV show, a movie, video games, it was here to stay. And so I feel like it hasn't stopped. And because of that, I don't want to say there's Star Wars fatigue now, but I do feel like it has lost a bit of its kind of like what made it special, before the prequel trilogy came out, and like it was a big deal that these new movies were coming out. Whereas now there's pretty much either a Star Wars show or movie coming out every year, which on one hand, for a diehard super fan of Star Wars, it's like his wet dream, right? Oh, this is amazing. I get all the Star Wars I want. But I feel like it's a double-edged sword because it's kind of watering down the legacy of what made Star Wars special for so many people. What are your thoughts?
It is a double-edged sword because you're getting more content, but sometimes the content is filling in gaps that you really want.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're changing things not for the better. Like I know, again, spoilers, Kenobi, the series, I was fairly certain, like, well, they're not going to fight each other. Then Vader's not going to fight Kenobi. Boy, was I wrong.
Yeah.
Twice. But I liked it, but it takes away from Episode 4 now, where they meet each other, and it's like Kenobi has like this look of like, I always envision like, oh, he doesn't know what Darth Vader looks like. So when he sees him in Episode 4, he stops. He's like, oh my God.
Yeah.
But now we got that in the Kenobi series where he actually sees him for the first time. He's like, oh my God. Well, that's kind of ruined now. I don't mind more things being pumped out for certain things. Like the Kenobi series, it was interesting, but I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But it kind of does damper Episode 4 now.
Okay.
Whereas like the Andor series, like he's a minor character. It's just because I feel like the minor characters or secondary characters are more enjoyable in their I don't want to say spin-offs, but I guess it is a spin-off.
I mean,
the
it
Andor
is.
series was fun.
Yeah.
The Han Solo movie, although not really revered by many, but it doesn't change that much. It just gives you another piece
Right.
to Han Solo.
Yeah.
Gives you another piece to Andor, gives you a piece to, hey, listen, there's more of a rebellion going on than just Luke, Han, and Leia. Like, it's a fight. And it's a long fight. That I don't mind. The Mandalorian is its own animal. The Ahsoka series, it looks like it's going to be, a different time period. But I don't mind the secondary characters. When you bring in a big character like Kenobi, you're changing the character of him, you're changing the character of Vader, and you're changing you're changing the movie.
Yeah.
That I think was too big. That's the only one. Again, I enjoyed it, but it dampers the original trilogy for me now because it's like,
yeah, it takes away from some of the impact.
This.
That's fair. Yeah, no, and I would agree.
Yeah.
I think that's where they kind of run the risk of like overexposing the franchise to the fans, and quite frankly, yeah, like I feel like they could have benefited more from a slower burn than this. Not necessarily 10 years in between, but a slower burn than what they've been doing because they have been balls to the wall, especially since the sequel trilogy. Right? It's been nonstop.
Mm-hmm. I also feel like they're trying to make up for the sequel trilogy. I think
that's true too.
It was not as received universally because the thing is, 1 and 2 they weren't that great, but number 3 the money was there.
Yeah,
it did well. I mean, number 1 did well also, but the money is fantastic. But the review of it was not good. Right. Number 2 had neither the money nor the review. And number 3 has at least the review, maybe has the money. 7, 8, 9, it just went down.
Yeah.
It just 7 was out, and then it did 8 did less than 7, and then 9, I believe, did less than 8. I know in terms of reviews, it's certainly I really have not met anybody that goes, God damn, that was great. I love those 3 sequels. Like,
yeah,
no, I haven't really met anybody, and all my friends are into it. There's bits and pieces, but not like bits and pieces like I've described in episode 2. Like, well, you have this fight, and you have this, and you have this, and you have this, and this sets up this down the road, and this is going back to that in episode 1. I've never seen anything in 7, 8, 9. And we were just talking about those moments that changed characters in these TV shows. Have you watched episode 8?
I have.
Episode 8.
That's the last one I saw. I've not seen 9. I've seen 7 and 8.
Were Rey and this is when they're fighting. Well, they kill Snoke, which is, I could do a whole show on that. What a train wreck that was.
Yeah,
but that's what I'm saying. Everybody universally goes, that was absolutely terrible. Yeah. Nobody likes it. Here's an example of something changing in the TV series, changing from the TV series. So after Kylo Ren kills Snoke, when him and Rey are fighting those red guards,
yep,
that they're having a hard time with. Okay, so those are some sort of Imperial guards or this, that, and the other thing. In The Mandalorian, Mando and little baby Yoda fight 3 of those guys by themselves. He's not a Jedi. So now that you've watched that, you go back and watch episode 8, you're like, well, why the hell are Rey and Kylo Ren having such a hard time? The Mandalorian beat them.
Yeah. And it's the same guard, supposedly.
So, yes, it's the same, like, military service, so to speak. We have Navy SEALs and we have CIA and all this stuff. So, like, I beat a Navy. Like, if I beat a Navy, I would never, in my wildest dreams, would never. But, like, if I beat a Navy SEAL in a movie and then Brock Lesnar fights a Navy SEAL and he barely beats him, like, well, why the hell is Brock Lesnar barely fighting this Navy SEAL when some schmuck on a podcast was able to beat him in a movie?
Gotcha.
You know what I'm saying? That's a terrible example, but you get what I'm saying. Like, all right, Rey and Kylo Ren should be 2 seconds because Mando did it with himself.
Yeah.
That's another example of the TV shows kind of ruining characters and ruining a movie.
Gotcha. Yeah. No, that's a good point. Oh man. Well, listen, I definitely see a lot more Star Wars content in the future coming to the channel just because of, your passion for it, especially. And again, just want to give you mad props because your passion for Power Rangers is certainly shown through on the channel here as well. So, because you put out a ton of Power Ranger stuff. So before we wrap up our episode, anything you want to talk about with regard to Power Rangers coming out on the channel?
Well, we just came off the 30th anniversary special.
Yep.
So we're going to be kind of dissecting that a little bit. One of our more popular videos that we've uploaded is about an object called the Master Morpher, if you're a fan of that. It basically allows a ranger to transform into any form they've ever been. So it's kind of like a key box, so to speak. You have all these different keys, and you can open up any box you want, and there you go. You're that particular superhero, kind of like Iron Man. If you think about Iron Man with all his different suits, imagine Iron Man had that little thingy he taps in his chest, and he could be War Machine. He could be Iron Man from the first season. He could be Iron Spider. He could be whatever he wants. So that's what the Master Morpher is. It's done some very nice numbers, and I'm very happy about that. So we're going to do a deeper dive into that. And also, with the anniversary shows, we're going to kind of rank those. Dan mentioned some rankings we may do for Star Wars in terms of the animated show. We're going to do that with Power Rangers and their anniversary shows, because we're 30 years in, which is disgusting and awesome at the same time. So,
yes.
Right? It's like, happy 30th anniversary. Like, oh,
jeez.
Okay, 30 years. So let's not harp on that. So there's some stuff in the works, but also, like Dan said, we're going to be doing some Star Wars stuff and some Twisted Metal stuff, because that's another show from the 90s, or excuse me, video game that we liked, and also some other classic TV shows from our childhood that we're gonna be putting some more stuff out.
I got lots of plans for that. I'm very excited because I've got some stuff. I talked about a little bit of it, last week. But I've got some cool stuff planned for the channel as well. So I'm having a blast with it, man. I think we're just talking about stuff we loved from our childhood, and we're making videos about it, which is, you think about this, like back in college when we would like reminisce about this stuff back then, like who'd have thought that we'd have a YouTube channel where we could just go on and talk about whatever we wanted to from our childhood, and people seem to like it. So
and I appreciate both me and Dan and our other guests very much appreciate every single view, and that sounds super freaking corny, but it's true. We started this as a beer project for two friends that don't live by each other anymore, to just shoot the breeze, and hopefully people will listen. And we sincerely thank you for listening to every single episode of anything we produce. And the only way we can make content that obviously we enjoy, but you enjoy as well, is if you leave those comments on YouTube or on our social media pages or wherever you could reach us. If you have an idea, and that's an awesome thing about, you mentioned the Power Ranger stuff, Dan, is they're popular videos, and we're getting comments, and there's been a few requests, and that's the only way we could do stuff, is if you folks let us know what you want to see, and we'll do our darndest to make it happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And then if you're listening to this podcast, and we've been talking about this like it's a YouTube only thing. Obviously, it's not. If you're listening on iTunes or Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcast, leave a review. That helps me, with that side of things as far as getting those rankings up. And leave a review. Tell a friend. If you have friends that grew up in the 90s and early 2000s, have them check us out, man. We've got some cool stuff now. We've got Power Rangers. We've got Turtles. We've got Star Wars now. We've got Nickelodeon. We've got just any random. I got an episode up about high school dances that I did with my wife. I've got Harry Potter. So it's all up there. So check it out. And if you're listening to this, or if you're watching this on YouTube, feel free to go check it out. If you're, I know sometimes it's hard to listen to podcasts from YouTube because you have to leave the app open and it drains your battery, and it's a pain in the ass. But if you want to just truly listen to our discussions, we've got them all there on iTunes and on Spotify and on Amazon and on Google. Wherever you listen, it's there. So make sure you're referring a friend to that. And again, thank you, like Lou said, just to echo what Lou said, thank you so much for listening and for watching and for checking out the channel. We truly appreciate all of this. So thank you so much. And Lou, thank you so much for coming on today, man, talking Star Wars. If I were to sum up my first experience meeting you, it was, okay, this guy really loves pro wrestling and this guy really loves Star Wars. So we've now covered both of those at least once here on the channel. So again, thank you so much for coming on again.
You're very welcome.
Awesome. All right, guys, that's going to wrap it up for this week. Thank you again for listening. And as always, we'll talk to you soon.
I didn't make a chess reference. I have nothing. Go Aaron Rodgers.
Thanks, guys.
Goodbye.